This episode is brought to you by Choiceology, an original podcast from Charles Schwab. Hosted by Katie Milkman, an award-winning behavioral scientist and author of the best-selling book, How to Change, Choiceology is a show about the psychology and economics behind our decisions. Hear true stories from Nobel laureates, authors, athletes, and everyday people about why we do the things we do. Listen to Choiceology at schwab.com/podcast or wherever you listen.
We're so done with New Year, New You. This year, it's more you on Bumble. More of you shamelessly sending playlists, especially that one filled with show tunes. More of you finding Geminis because you know you always like them. More of you dating with intention because you know what you want. And you know what? We love that for you. Someone else will too. Be more you this year and find them on Bumble.
I mean, I still do have that thing where if I hear a song on the radio and I like it and I pull it up on Spotify and I find out the song has 11,000 plays, I'm like, yes, you know what I mean? And if I find it has 30 million plays, I'm like, oh man. Welcome to How To. I'm Carvell Wallace and I love music. I always have. Some of my earliest memories involve me lying on the floor of my bedroom when I was supposed to be cleaning it, but instead just staring at the ceiling and listening to Michael Jackson singing Lady in My Life. Which I contend then and contend now is by a wide margin the best song on Thriller and maybe even of his whole career. I don't care, you can fight me about that. I would get lost in that song. I would get emotional. I had this experience a lot back then in the 80s with Prince and Musical Youth and Men at Work. Don't judge me, I was 8. And when I grew older, I would get overwhelmed listening to Fishbone and NWA and Spice One and John Coltrane and Jimi Hendrix and Sonic Youth. I would take the bus down Ventura Boulevard in the Valley and spend all day flipping through tapes and CDs at the Warehouse Music and Video Store, where I would later have one of my first jobs. I could only afford to buy one thing, and so I had to choose carefully. I wanted the music to be so good that it would make me cry. Music never stopped being important to me. I played in bands in college and in my 20s and 30s, and I even wrote about music for Pitchfork at the beginning of my career. But somewhere along the way, sometime after Spotify became the main way I listen, I experienced this weird phenomenon, which is that it suddenly became impossible to find thrilling new music. It was like the algorithm kept serving me the same stuff over and over, and I didn't know how to break out of it. I didn't have some weird kid's older sister to turn me on to music that was exciting and kind of scary. Warehouse and Tower Records were long gone. Radio had been reduced to a small collection of TikTok hits floating in a sea of commercials. Music has never been more accessible thanks to streaming apps, but that can make discovering the perfect new track feel like finding a needle in a haystack. So this week, we're going to bring on 2 listeners, music superfans in their own right, who are also searching for that proverbial needle and asking themselves, are there even better ways to discover new and interesting music?
My name is Brie. I live in Maryland, and I've just been a music enthusiast for a long time. Growing up, my dad loved music. He made me a set of tapes to get started of music he felt like I should know. And it was just always something that was kind of important in my family that I grew up with.
Yeah, RJ, I live on Long Island and I'm 53 years old. And similar to Brie, music's been a part of my life from the day I can remember. And I was lucky to grow up with 3 older siblings in the 70s, which was a great time of experiencing music through my family. And I take a lot of pride in having good taste in music.
A little later in the show, we're going to hear how Brie has meticulously documented her music journey for more than a decade. But first, RJ's own journey began as a kid who had older siblings, and that meant soaking up their music taste and digging through record collections that left lasting impressions.
Kodachrome, Paul Simon. I could picture the 45. I mean, just couldn't hear it enough. I had older sisters who listened to, Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd. My mother, who was who was from Massachusetts, she would say, Ajay. That's her way of saying my name. Don't listen to this. That Led Zeppelin, he's crazy. Pink Floyd, they're crazy. So they were people. I didn't know they weren't people. I just knew that they were a little bit dangerous and edgy. I was like, oh, I want to learn more about that.
Yeah.
So for me, it was just kind of picturing exactly, where you were when you heard music, which for me, that experience, especially the first time of discovering something new that really strikes a nerve for you is just something you never forget.
Yeah. How old were you when you heard that Paul Simon record?
Wow. I was probably 4 or 5 years old. I mean, I was born in 1971. I mean, it was definitely mid 70s. It's one of those things that just kind of stuck with you.
And do you remember the first piece of music that you went out and bought?
Yeah.
What was it?
It was the first album I bought was Privatized by Daryl Hall and John Oates.
Hall and Oates, yeah. I Can't Go For That. It had that like propulsive beat. That propulsive like driving beat that's been sampled so many times and remixed and stuff.
Magical, the way it grabs you. So I think there was something about, and looking back on it now, learning about their roots, right, out of all the disco scene, that was everything that was going on in Philadelphia. It was like, wow, they just fused so many really cool things together.
Yeah.
And it's aged so well.
Yeah. And back in the day, it was like you would hear a single. I mean, that's how you found out about an album, is you would hear a single that it was like, yeah, you were just like, you wanted more of that. I totally relate to that.
I think it used to be a scarcity thing. Like it used to have a lot of pride. Like when you discovered a band or you found something cool first, like there was a sense of ownership with that, right? And I think there was something about the discovery element of it, whether it was when you were in high school and you'd meet friends in high school that maybe had a cool older brother that had, I still remember like the Red Hot Chili Peppers and being at a high school party and being like, what is this? And then looking at the album cover and be like, okay, these guys are out of their mind, but couldn't get enough of it. So much it was tribal, so much it was handed down. And I think now in the digital world that we are, where the great news is like you could queue up anything you want at any time, but the bad news is it's just everywhere and it's overwhelming. And how do you go, not just go back to the things that you love, but how do you discover things that are new?
In theory, this should be like the greatest time in the world for discovering music because everything is accessible. And like, I was born in 1974. So I remember what it was like going into a record store and being like, damn, I'm going to put down $15.99 of my hard-earned money for something that I don't even know if it's good. But now it's like, I can listen to anything. I could just go and like find any artist who ever lived and find some of their work. Derrick, it should be easier to discover music right now. So why is it that people like pine for the old days of mixtapes and CDs and records?
I wonder about that question because I think that there's generationally, I think that younger people, and I'm going to say like 17 years old, might not pine for that sort of thing. But I think for people like us, myself included, who bought a lot of CDs, and it was a simpler time.
This is our expert this week, Derrick Gee.
And I think we pine for it because the value of music has changed and how we interact with it and what it means for music to be precious is a different thing. My name is Derrick Gee. I am considered these days a content creator. I call myself a professional music fan. So I talk about music online, primarily in short form video. I've been a radio host in the past, a DJ, and now I reach many, many hundreds of thousands of people just sharing what I love about music, and people seem to like it.
Derrick Gee, G-E-E, lives in Australia, but he's kind of everywhere online. YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. He's even got a private listening club on Patreon, which if you haven't checked out yet, you probably should. He's like an encyclopedia of modern music, a human recommendation engine who can hook you into mainstream stuff and experimental sounds and hidden gems and vintage Korean psychedelic and so much more. And yeah, I am a fan. So today on the show, we're going to let Derrick be our musical treasure hunter. He's going to show us where to dig to find the gems and bangers we've been wanting for so long. Stick around.
When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, you think about a great product or a cool brand or brilliant marketing. But the often overlooked secret is the importance of the business behind the business that makes selling simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does selling better than Shopify. It's home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret secret is that Shopify with Shop Pay can boost conversions by up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales. So, if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling, on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/how-to. Go to shopify.com/how-to to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/how-to. This episode is brought to you by Choiceology, an original podcast from Charles Schwab. Choiceology is a show all about the psychology and economics behind our decisions. Each episode shares the latest research in behavioral science and dives into themes like, can we learn to make smarter decisions, and the power of do-overs. The show is hosted by Katie Milkman. She's an award-winning behavioral scientist, professor at the Wharton School, and author of the best-selling book, How to Change. In each episode, Katie talks to authors, historians, athletes, Nobel laureates, and everyday people about why we make irrational choices and how we can make better ones to avoid costly mistakes. Listen and subscribe at schwab.com/podcast or find it wherever you listen.
We're back with our listeners Brie and RJ and our expert Derrick Gee. Derrick is a DJ and an online influencer, sure, but I like how he described himself a moment ago as a professional music fan. Music seeking today is not the same as what it was in our past, but according to Derrick, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just different.
I think that young people especially are far more educated on music than anyone ever has been before. So I think it is the best time in history to discover music. But I think we're missing focus and the time to take to really obsess over something. And I think that we are much quicker to dismiss music. And I think of every age, because it is something where we can just put on a playlist and just absorb music as a consumable as opposed to an art form. And I think that's a really dangerous relationship to have with music, because it should be a lot more special.
I grew up as I was a music guy. I played music, I played in bands, and then I started writing about music. So I thought, okay, I'm like a music guy. I'm the kind of guy that people come to when they're like, what's cool? And I'm like, can make them a mixtape. And when I was prepping for this episode, I was thinking about, well, who do I like listening to right now? And one of the things that blew my mind, because I'd never noticed this before, is that I can always remember the certain tracks that I like or play on repeat, but I can never remember the artists. I actually don't remember the artist's name. And I was like, God, that has to be because Spotify is just serving me these things in a list, and all I have to do is click the save button so that I hear it again, but I never get to interact with the actual artist the way I used to sit and look at somebody's lyric sheet inside the tape or inside the CD or inside the vinyl. Is that something that you think is part of what is being lost?
Definitely. I think if you look at the motivation of the streaming services and of the labels, it's less to do with what you buy, but your session time. So how long are you staying in this place? And so they want to please you. They want to kind of have you be in a lean back scenario where it's just on and it's pleasant, and it uses its algorithms to say, well, people like you listen to this, so you might like listening to it as well. But the result of that is that there is very little depth. It's hard to be obsessed with things because it just plays you the best music out right now, according to them. I do liken it to social media in a sense, because I reach lots of people, sometimes millions of people with my videos, but people might not know my name. It's just the guy that, some people say the Asian guy with glasses. It's a battle for attention, including music. And I think that's really hard for musicians as well. And I think it deserves more time for musicians or for myself. It's like if people are putting in quality effort, it should, in this age, require us to then dig in and go, why do I like that? And it's part of the solution for me is like stopping, listening to that album, learning about them, and trying to become a fan as opposed to a consumer.
It's such a different way of interacting with artists than I grew up with. And it's interesting to see how much I've fallen into it. You know, I have this experience where I will like have a song that I like or a playlist that I like, and I'll be like, yeah, the song is good. And it's always kind of bedroomy, R&B, pop. I'm always liking that stuff. And I'm always like, yeah, it's so intimate. It's like my own little music and this own little weird artist made it and I like it. And then I go into a cafe and it's like they play 7 songs while I'm in there that are the exact same songs that I thought were just mine. And I hear them everywhere. And lately I've been thinking about how Spotify seems to, and maybe this is just me, prioritize this kind of like bedroom pop R&B thing. First of all, is that true or is that just my algorithm? And secondly, is that part of the feeling of that, like Spotify wants you to remain in a sense of like pleasant, relaxed, nothing too aggressive, nothing too forceful, nothing to kind of like wake you up from your listening stupor?
For sure. I would say definitely. There's a reason why Frank Ocean seems to make it into every playlist,
right,
even if it's a rock playlist.
Right, exactly.
It's just like, it just lulls you. And I have friends that are like, and this is no shade on Frank, not everyone likes him.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm not a fan of Frank's, but he always comes up, and not me. This is what they say. And they try to mute him, and it keeps coming back because it's like, the streaming services will say, no, the majority of people like this, you will like this and you will stay around for it, so we will please you with this. And to be nostalgic, radio and kind of turning the dial and stumbling upon something was the charm, right? And now it's very hard to stumble upon something that's shocking or surprising, because it's tailored to know you. And for my whole career, I've never used an algorithmic playlist because I don't want a machine to think it knows me, which is a bit extreme, but I like randomness. I like finding things on my own. And I think part of it and part of this discussion for me is about effort. You know, it's about not letting something choose for you, because that can lull you into a false sense of security.
Make me violent. Every night you were in my room.
That was the track In My Room by Frank Ocean, one of the artists that Derrick just mentioned. Okay, so Brie, one of our listeners, has been doing a really interesting thing, which is documenting her music discovery journey by compiling an annual playlist. She's been at it for almost 15 years.
So I always also made a lot of mixed CDs back in college. I'd collect them, and then all the new music I'd put onto a CD. And so then I guess when I think this might have been when I initially downloaded Spotify, but really early on when I started using streaming, I just started collecting it into annual playlists. And I have kept doing that in part because it gives me a way that I can go back to older years and listen to what I was doing at that time. And it gives me this like great blast of nostalgia. Like, oh yeah, I was like in the club listening to this music in 2012. Yeah. Sometimes there's like a year that was hard for me, and I can hear that in whatever I was listening to in that year. You know, whatever I'm listening to in 2025, I'm kind of building that playlist.
That means that you've been engaging with Spotify for a long time.
Yes.
Have you found that it's changed? Has it gotten worse, better for you? Stayed the same in terms of like discovering new music that you maybe wouldn't otherwise find?
I used to use the discovery algorithm, and I stopped in the past year or two because it just started to feel really samey. And so I didn't feel like I was discovering anything like that was exciting, like things that I could listen to, you know, listenable music that I would think, okay, yeah, that's fun. It'll fit into like a mood list, but it wasn't anything that excited me. So to kind of find new music, I've moved away from those algorithms, and I've been seeking out mostly podcasts that are, the whole point of those podcasts is discovering music, like KEXP or NPR, or podcasts that just do just a random song every day. And I really enjoy just the things I would never listen to. Even if I only listen to it that once, because it happens to be that song of the day, it doesn't make it to any playlist. It's still just like a fun little moment.
Turning to Derrick, like, let's like get into like the main question, which is like, if Spotify isn't serving you new, exciting music that is pushing you in new directions that are great, and it's just kind of giving you the same, like, bedroom R&B, Frank Ocean, the internet, what a Cleo Soul, whatever it is, which is all great. If you feel like it's not pushing you to new places, how do you discover new music?
It's the $1 million question, isn't it? Well, why we're all here.
Yeah.
And I get asked this a lot in public, people that recognize me and what have you, with people that are stuck. The answer is up to you. And this is not the answer that people necessarily want to hear. They want to say, like, I should say, and I will say, people like internet radio, things like DJ sets, places that you trust, that you think authentically want to share music with you. But I do think tastemakers are people that do all the effort for you, passionate and nerdy about it, and want to provide you with what they've found, and they'll do that for the rest of their life for free because they love it so much. And that's what I have done. These tastemakers are people like me on the internet. They are DJs, they're radio hosts, they are people that want to share their love for music and put it in context. I think that's really important, because therefore you learn about why they like it, as opposed to just say, here's 100 songs that you should check out this week, which is overwhelming. But the deeper question is that when you're younger, perhaps you're going to parties, clubs, concerts, and you're surrounded by your friends who's always putting music on in the car and whatnot, and your priorities change and quiet time is more valuable. I do think that discovering new music is about taking a pause, diving deep, and getting uncomfortable, and listening to stuff that, you might not like every song from that artist, but listen to their whole album, give it a go. What IJ said, I think that being inspired by the passion of young people is really great, because I think that there is a fervent energy that we all have, or had in some cases, that it's good to leech off that fountain of youth in a sense. But I think it is about really deciding that music is still important to you in life, and that it is worth pursuing.
I love this idea of like getting out of your comfort zone. I think that this is, if the goal of streaming services is to kind of keep us there so that we never are challenged by anything, then part of what we miss is that experience of like listening to the radio when we were younger, or buying a CD where you don't like every song, but you do like one of them a lot, or someone makes you a mixtape and like not every song works for you, but you sort of, something grows on you because you hear it all the time. I guess my question for RJ and for Brie is like, do you find yourself sitting through music that you don't like in order to find music that you do? And how do you push yourself into uncomfortable places?
Yeah. Because I do a lot of it through podcasts, I'm doing something else. So I can kind of selectively tune in and out if something's really catching my attention or not. Like if I'm washing dishes and I'm listening, if something's really interesting, I stop and I like move it to a new playlist. If there is a song that I find myself listening to over and over, I will seek out the album to listen to as well. And so I do, I don't always like all the songs on an album, but I try to make a point of like hearing what else those artists are working on and seeing that there's more there that I'm really interested in.
What about you, RJ?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the significant upsides to the change in how we access and consume music is everyone tours now, and there's so much live music. And for me, like, that's a huge boon of this, right? Some acts, like, you need to see them live, and just getting the vibe of the people who are at a show for a band that you may be curious about, you're not kind of sold on yet, for me has been pretty awesome. Instead of kind of sifting through some things, just trying to take a shot at some, a local band that I've heard some good things about, and I'll go to their show and then go back and use that as a way to discover, as a way to kind of see what they're like in a live environment, which might open up my mind to them in a much different way.
I feel like for me, I also struggle with finding the music. For me, college radio is like the number one thing that I go to. Like I live in the Bay Area. I'll turn on KALX Berkeley, which is the UC-Berkeley radio station, and they just play music all day long. and they almost have no shows that aren't music. They almost have no commercials, interruptions, and they'll just play the most obscure, random music. I think about, there's a station in Texas, which I think is KVRX, and their tagline is all the music, none of the hits. Like, that's my like mantra for listening to radio, is like all of the music, none of the hits, because I'll just listen to the most obscure stuff. It'll be like noise recordings. People like reciting poetry over like someone hitting a trash can. And then, and it'll just be in the background while I work or clean or do whatever. And then suddenly they'll play a song and I'll be like, whoa, what is this? And then I'll go to the website because they list every single song they play in a row, and I'll find that song and then I'll put that on a playlist. I think, Derrick, what you said, that other people have done the work of pouring through the entirety of music to bring me stuff that's interesting to them. But Derrick, what are your go-tos for finding other tastemakers that have gone through and have culled things that may be interesting to you?
Because my profession is to discover and put people onto music, I actually intentionally go out to listen to music a lot less than I did. What I have the skill for now, because I've been doing it for so long. Because before, when I used to not do this for a living, I would work in an office and I would listen to the radio all the time. Or NTS radio is a good example, internet radio in London. And just choose shows, pick and choose shows, pick a DJ, put it on, whether it's grime or whether it's 70s folk, they've got something for you there. And I just kind of let it wash over me and pick and choose my favorite things. Nowadays, because I'm talking about music so much, the time to sit down is few and far between, but my ears are always open. And I think I can liken this to, I'm not a photographer in any way, but I was recently overseas and I was asked to take some photos for a brand. And I was really worried because I don't have an eye for photography. I don't know what to look for. But after completing one roll of film, I started to see things. I started to go, oh, that shadow is really nice. Oh, that thing placed there is really pretty. And I learned that is very analogous to music. It's like if you turn the switch on and go, okay, I want to discover new music, then you'll see your friend from high school share an Instagram story, and it will be a picture of something they shared from Spotify. Or you'll be in a cafe and your ears will prick up. Or you'll hear it in a film and you'll want to Shazam it. Or you'll read an article and your favorite artist will mention a reference you don't understand and you go down that rabbit hole. If you decide that you want to discover new music, it comes to you. And I am someone that puts out a show every single week. I can do that very easily and show people all this new music I'm discovering without having to sit down and discover it, because I'm always open to finding it.
This is a great point. The internet is overwhelming, and few of us have time to scour DJ playlists and online databases for gems, so maybe you can just sort of let them come to you. Like flicking that switch in your brain, the one that activates your interest in new things and opens up your mind to new sounds, that can help you notice the new music that is already all around you. All right, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about truly getting out of your comfort zone. And Derrick gives us some specific new music recommendations. Stick around.
Eczema isn't always obvious, but it's real. And so is the relief from Ebglyss. After an initial dosing phase of 16 weeks, about 4 in 10 people taking Ebglyss achieved itch relief and clear or almost clear skin. And most of those people maintain skin that's still more clear at 1 year with monthly dosing.
Ebglyss, lebrikizumab LBKZ, a 250 milligram per 2 milliliter injection, is a prescription medicine used to treat adults and children 12 years of age and older who weigh at least 88 pounds or 40 kilograms with moderate to severe eczema, also called atopic dermatitis, that is not well controlled with prescription therapies used on the skin or topicals, or who cannot use topical therapies. Ebglyss can be used with with or without topical corticosteroids. Don't use if you're allergic to Ebglyss. Allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Eye problems can occur. Tell your doctor if you have new or worsening eye problems. You should not receive a live vaccine when treated with Ebglyss. Before starting Ebglyss, tell your doctor if you have a parasitic infection.
Searching for real relief? Ask your doctor about Ebglyss and visit ebglyss.lilly.com or call 1-800-LILY-RX or 1-800-545-5979.
Tax season comes down to three things: preparation, preparation, and preparation. Like most people prepping for taxes, you're probably struggling with keeping all your financial logins and documents secure and accessible. 1Password can help with that. It's all in one place. Along with creating and securing passwords, 1Password deters fake tax prep sites by only autofilling login sites that you've saved. And what about wrangling all of those financial documents? Well, 1Password has encrypted sharing and storage space to secure things like receipts, W-2s, IRS forms year-round. Look, taxes are probably always going to be a drag, but failure to prepare is preparing to fail. So let 1Password protect your sensitive information and bring order to the tax prep chaos. And right now, you get 25% off your first year of 1Password individual or 50% off your first year of 1Password families at 1password.com/howto. That's 25 or 50% off of your first year at 1password.com/howto. That's 1password.com/howto.
Imagine what's possible when learning doesn't get in the way of life. At Capella University, our game-changing FlexPath learning format lets you set your own deadlines so you can learn at a time and pace that works for you. It's an education you can tailor to your schedule. That means you don't have to put your life on hold to pursue your professional goals. Instead, enjoy learning your way and earn your degree without missing a beat. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
This is How To. I'm Carvell Wallace. More now with our music unarchiver, Derrick Gee. According to a recent study conducted by the music streaming platform Deezer, music discovery peaks at about the age of 24 and begins to stagnate by the age of 31. I don't mind saying that's bullshit. I mean, I'm sure it's factually true, but it shouldn't be. Discovering new music is like discovering new life. And why would you stop that at age 31? So if you, like me, are older than that, but reject this idea that music discovery should stop just because of your age, then where do you go?
I think that going and just Googling and searching is really overwhelming. I think that's why record stores are still really important. But I think the bigger concern, I think it's about ego and about optimism and not thinking that all the music that exists that you might not be used to is bad and that it was better. And I think I had to learn that myself the hard way when I was doing radio for quite a period of time. And I started to feel like that. And I missed whole genres because I'm like, this stuff's rubbish. This is horrible. I don't like it. Until years later, I went, actually, why is this so popular? Maybe I should listen to it. And then I went, this is amazing. I love this. And I think it was a real lesson for me early on in my radio career to go don't age yourself out of music discovery because you think you know everything and allow yourself to be kind of curious and open-minded.
You know, as a black kid growing up in LA, but wanting to navigate all different kinds of genres, you'd go into some spaces and people would have such a fucking attitude and you'd want to get to the music, but you had to navigate all these clowns. And I like that you're advocating, let's leave that part behind, the part where we think that we're better because we like certain kinds of music.
Well, it's just music at the end of the day. It's it's fear for a lot of people and identity. And I think why people like what I do is because I talk about what I like and nothing else. And it's not comparing things and saying what's the best thing of the week and what's the worst thing of the week. Because as you mature as someone like a music journalist sense, you learn that you don't have to have an opinion on everything. Because if there's an artist that is singing to 14-year-old girls and they feel that viscerally and I don't, that doesn't mean it's bad music. Right. It's just because I'm not that. Right. And that's okay. And that's something that not everyone gets to. I think people like to hold on to their taste as a, form of identity and protection.
Yeah. I I want to ask everyone what they're listening to and liking now, and I want to share some of the stuff that I'm listening to and liking now. So let's start with you, RJ. Like, what new things have you felt like you've discovered in the past few months that you're like, yeah, I'm into this. This is new and I like it.
There's one act, the Fontaine's DC. I've been going deep on Britpop, and they kind of come from that. And again, guitar-driven rock, which you just don't see a lot of new coming out. And they're actually coming to Manhattan in a couple months' time. And I'm looking to take my daughters to that, so they kind of see somebody, that's, I think, has a big presence in a smaller club, and who knows where they go from there. Oh,
that's so cool. What about you, Brie?
So a couple of the songs that I've been listening to a lot that are in my new list are the Flip Turn. They've got a song out called Juno that's like a just really solid indie pop electronic music.
Yeah, that sounds like the kind of stuff I like. Derrick, what about you? What are your latest interests and obsessions musically?
I'm really into the kind of an art pop adjacent scene in Denmark, in Copenhagen. I interviewed an artist last year named Erica de Cassia, who kind of is at the forefront of like kind of minimal R&B.
Do you wish it was me with my cute face that showed up on your screen? There's a reason I'm your ex-girlfriend, but still.
And the community that's built around that, there's an artist called Fina, which is spelled fine, an artist called Emil Book, who's really kind of ambient experimental pop. And artists like that, CTM is another one from there. I like kind of listening to music that there's a bit of a world built around, and there's a feeling, and there's a kind of like experimental coolness to this music. And I mean literal like temperature. It feels cold.
Yeah.
And you're hearing their music kind of permeate the internet, but in very like subversive kind of ways. It's not obvious.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see where like scenes develop and new artists find their sound that are not in the kind of mainstream territories of the pop music world.
Yeah. I mean, I still do have that thing where if I hear a song on the radio and I like it and I pull it up on Spotify and I find out the song has like, 11,000 plays, I'm like, yes, you know what I mean? And if I find it has like 30 million plays, I'm like, oh man. Like, so I still do have some of that like need to distinguish myself, but I don't know if it's just ego. It may just be that I like the scale of being in something that feels smaller and more local. And so if I like a certain band and, and there's 12,000 people in the world who like them, that feels local and that feels right.
I think we all do, right?
Yeah.
We all feel like we're part of a small thing and we're at the beginning and we're seeing something grow and it's ours and not no one else's. And some people, when I share something, they'll be like, no, I was gatekeeping this. And I know they're half joking, but it's like, I love it, so I want people to find it. But other people, and I get it, they love it, and they don't want anyone else to know about it.
Yeah,
and it's all valid. But I think my job is for people to enjoy music as much as possible.
Yeah, for me, I'm super chaotic. I just save everything to likes on Spotify, and I never organize them into playlists anymore. And so I was like, let me just go through my 100 billion likes and see which songs are like in my mind like super likes. Like I really like the song, and I realized I was separating it into genre categories, and I was like, okay, so I have like neo psychedelic, I have the bedroom pop R&B stuff, I have international stuff, I have jazz fusion. I just discovered the Jazz is Dead thing with Alicia Muhammad and Adrian Young, even though that's like years old. I just discovered that there's like 21 albums of just like jazz fusion that I can get into. But I realized that actually just in prepping for this, that what I really love is like psychedelic and vintage and like neo psychedelic. I found this group called Vanishing Twin. I heard on KALX. Another group called Magic and Threes. There's an old group called Female Species that like recorded one album in Southern California in like 1968 or something. It was like 3 white women and this Asian woman like were a garage band. And the album has such bangers on it. And they have no listeners on Spotify. And for me, it's like I really like weird psychedelic stuff. And my friend just turned me on to a SoundCloud playlist called Music of the Psychedelic Islamic State. But it got me thinking about how important SoundCloud is in discovering new music. But I find it hard to navigate because how do you know if there's cool shit on SoundCloud? And how would a person who wants to go and find DJ sets on these things, where would you start? Like, how do you enter into those spaces?
I think artist playlists are a huge hack to, and it's like DJing kind of in 2025. Because if I like Kalela and I go to Kalela's Spotify page and she has a playlist of stuff that she loves that's jazz, soul, R&B, what have you, psychedelia, I like every track on there because it's almost like a gateway drug, right? I like this artist, and so I'm going to already be open-minded to what they like. And I think that is the kind of new form of DJ where those are the places that I kind of gatekeep, where I like find Nala Sinefra's playlists. And then I just pilfer and pillage because I'm like, everything's amazing in here. Fontaine's DC, for example, you go to their page and they might have a playlist of stuff that they're really rocking with. And then it's like a whole new world. I think that's a better place to find things these days.
Okay. Nice. What about you, RJ? Do you have like places you go to like get recommendations from specific tastemakers besides your nephew?
Yeah. A couple of podcasts I like, there's Bandsplain, which goes super deep. Yeah, I mean, like 3 hours deep on bands like Oasis. That was, and for me, I extract like influences from that. So you start to learn about like krautrock, and I got deep and I was like, oh, okay, what's Can all about? And you start to go, again, new music that's not new, but it's new and it sounds amazing. But so for me, it was learning more about the bands I love at an obsessive level and then picking up some of the influences that they had.
I think one last thing for me is going to other countries. There's a whole scene of music. So IJ, there's so many like Silica Gel in Korea, a psychedelic rock band. You might not understand the language, but it's like, why not go to Korea? Why not go to Peru and see what's up? And that takes some Googling, that takes some search on YouTube or what have you. But then it's like, I think what I found a lot of success on my channels is that I kind of very simply would go, hey, you like Tame Impala and you like this and that. How about this artist from Japan? And people are like, oh, wow, I never even thought to look there.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, yeah, there's a whole industry. That's where it's like a treasure trove. If you type in like Korean psych as a playlist, there'll be stuff and you'll find stuff. And then it's like, that's a whole new rabbit hole, whole new country.
I love this idea of you doing this little parlor trick of like hearing people's influences and then giving them a recommendation. So you heard that Brie's, some of the bands that you're into right now, I wonder if Derrick, you'd be willing to try and make a recommendation of where Brie could look to find more.
Oh, God.
I really like Sylvan Esso. It's a electronic pop that have kind of a root in folk music.
Oh, gosh.
Most of their songs are about dancing.
Okay, well, this one, I don't know if this answer is obvious or not. There's a band called, I can't say it out loud, but FCUKERS, a duo out of New York that are absolutely blowing up. That it's like dance pop. They're like a festival band that harkens back to kind of Eurodance. And they're absolutely moving so quickly. They only released their first single just a year ago, and they're already like playing at Coachella and things. So that's one that I listen to a lot that I'm very excited about. So maybe that one.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, now do me. So I just realized that I, like in prepping for the show, that I really like weird neo-psychedelic stuff that goes into like sort of long psych rock breaks, especially if it's vintagey. I've like gotten into all the Nigerian psychedelic, all the African psychedelic. I'm into like some of the Islamic psychedelic now stuff that feels weird and underground. Where would you direct me to look?
Vintagey psychedelic, long. Obviously, you would have spent some time with Eve's Tumor, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of really, really like long and luxurious psych. I want to make it a good one. That's all. I don't want to choose anything too obvious. There's an artist called. It's an old artist called Kim Jung-mi, a Korean psychedelic artist who put out stuff in the 70s. That's really beautiful. There's a track on there that's really stunning. Haenim, Haenim. There's some great Korean psychedelia from the like late 60s as well.
Oh, I love that.
Which is worth spending time on.
I like that. I can't wait to check that out. Awesome. I mean, I really like what you said about the fact that, you know, the tastemaker is someone who does all this work for us and then shares their findings. It's a real service, and I'm really happy that you did that here with us today.
Oh, my pleasure. It's what I do for a living. If more people listen to more music, it's a good day for me.
Yeah. And then RJ and Brie, I'm so happy that you got a chance to come with us and share your wisdom and your tips, and stand in for our listeners who are always looking for ways to break out of the algorithm and go back to discovering music in like a way that they love. So thanks for being here.
Thanks.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
It was.
A huge thank you to Derrick Gee for helping us to dig through the digital stacks and find the hidden gold in the stream. Find out more about him and all the ways to follow him online at his site, derrickgee.com. That's DERRICKGEE.com. And of course, a huge thanks to RJ and Brie for joining us, and for all the listeners who reached out with their own tips for finding new music. A quick shout out to our listener, Matt, who likes to scan the posters of new music festivals and research the artists he hasn't heard of yet. And to our listener, Alicia, who put us onto two of her favorite DJs out of Pittsburgh, DJ Mike Canton and DJ Selecta. Go check them out. By the way, speaking of discovering new things, we found RJ and Brie through another Slate podcast, Hit Parade. They are fans of that show, and I think you might enjoy it too. Pop chart analyst Chris Malamphy takes you on a journey through music history, using storytelling, trivia, and song snippets. On the latest episode, Chris is talking about the forgotten hits of the 1960s. So check it out. Look for Hit Parade wherever you find your podcasts. And do you have a problem that needs solving? Send us a note at howto@slate.com or leave us a voicemail at 646-495-4001, and we might have you on the show. And if you like what you heard today, please give us a rating and a review and tell a friend. And send this episode to someone you know who is looking for new music. Do it right now, because that helps us help more people. How To is produced by Rosie Belson, who of late has been listening to instrumental music featuring the West African instrument, the kora. Our producer, Kevin Bendis, just discovered the band Feeble Little Horse. Joel Meyer is our supervising producer, and just this morning, he tried out the first track on guitarist Jeff Parker's new album, and he's really looking forward to the rest. And our senior technical director, Merritt Jacob, not only composed our theme music, but he's been diving into the back catalog of the late Roberta Flack, and is really into Judy Sill right now. Charles Duhigg created the show, Courtney Martin is my co-host, and I'm Carvell Wallace. Thanks for listening.